Hey everyone, Miles with Hamilton Dog Training. In this video, I'm going to show you how we train dogs to listen around distractions. We're going to cover the mistake that people make, mistake 1, then I'm going to give you the solution, then we'll cover mistake 2, and I'll give you the solution to that. And throughout the video, I'll show you examples with an actual untrained dog. That way you can see everything applied to a dog, so you can apply it with your dog at home. So, what's the first mistake? Well, this is probably the most common mistake that I see people make, but it's increasing the distractions too soon. And on the surface, this sounds incredibly obvious, like there's no way you could be making that mistake, right? But a lot of times, owners do this without even realizing it. It's completely unintentional and they don't even realize they're doing it. So let me give you an example. When we first started training Arrow, about a week into the training, he knows all of the basic stuff, right? He knows the loose leash walking, he knows sit, he knows down, he knows pressure to position, like he knows all of the basics. So I'm thinking, okay, great. Now it's time to take this dog on a structured walk. A structured walk is basically a walk, but it has rules, right? Can't pull me on the leash, can't react at dog, can't react at whatever, gotta listen to commands, that sort of thing, right? So we take him on a structured walk. I'm thinking this is a perfect environment. The neighborhood is super low distraction. There's nothing going on. It's a quiet residential neighborhood. No people out, no dogs out. Like this is a perfect environment to do the structured walks. That's what I'm thinking. So we take the dog out and at the beginning of the walk, hyper fixated on the environment. He's scanning everything, every little thing in the environment he's hyper aware of, his nose to the ground, he's tracking the smells, all of that stuff, right? And so periodically throughout the walk, I give him a command, sit or down, and I see what he does. He failed probably 80 to 90% of those commands. And what I mean by failed is I give him the command, down, and he fails to hit the position. Then I have to make pressure to get him in the position. So that's what I mean by failed. So after that walk, I'm like, okay, he failed like 80-90% of the commands. Maybe this is a new environment, right? New walk, like he's never been on this route before. So maybe like over time he'll desensitize to it, right? So we take him out again, same walk, same thing. Fails 80-90% of the commands. So I'm like, okay, let's take him out one more time. We take him out again the next day, same thing. Fails 80-90% of the commands. So now I'm like, all right, we need to take a step back in the training, okay? And this is a good general rule for you guys. If you're ever out training your dog and your dog is more wrong than right, you probably need to take a step back in the training, all right? If your dog is ever more wrong than right, you probably need to take a step back. So I knew after that, after attempting the structured walk in what I thought was a low distraction environment, I knew I needed to take a step back because this is way too distracting for him, right? And here's the solution. Here's what we did. We need to create a ladder of compliance. All right, we need to create a ladder of compliance. And this is what Arrow needed badly, okay? So a ladder of compliance. This is what I call it. I don't know exactly what the behavioral psychology term is for this. So if any of you guys know, let me know in the comments, please. I would greatly appreciate it. But essentially what this looks like is we needed to take a step back for Arrow in the training and create this ladder of compliance. Now, what does that mean? Well, the reason why Arrow was failing that walk is because he had literally no concept of listening to a command outside in the environment around distractions. It like wasn't even a possibility in his head. He didn't even know that was a thing that was possible. Like being outside in the environment and having to sit, foreign, like foreign concept, right? Being in a smell, mid-smell and having to down, foreign, right? Never has he ever experienced something like that sort of obligation in the training, right? He just didn't comprehend that. He just didn't understand that was a possibility, which is fine. All we have to do is now we have to create a ladder of compliance with this dog. So here's what it looks like. The first step is as low of a distraction environment as you could possibly imagine. For most people, that's gonna be inside your house, inside your living room, inside your kitchen, whatever, right? Low distraction as it can possibly get. So what you do here is first you make control here, right? Your dog should be able to hit all of the positions extremely reliably. This should sit down, come, heel, everything should be perfect inside this environment here, okay? And what we build is we start building a history of compliance. So the dog starts getting used to complying with you in this environment. Then we step up. So what's the next step? Well, the next step for you might be your backyard, it might be your driveway, it might be your garage, it might be the hallway outside of your apartment door, right? Whatever it is, that next step. For us, it was the backyard, okay? That's the next step of the ladder for Arrow. Inside the house, master that, now we gotta master the backyard. Once we've got the backyard, okay, next step, front yard. Front yard, all right? Front yard, we're just gonna work on the loose leash walking. We're gonna do the basic obedience commands, all of the basic stuff in the front yard, okay? Specifically, the driveway, okay? The next for us was the cul-de-sac, just the circle, not anything further, nothing, just the circle, okay? Cul-de-sac. Then after that, the adjacent streets to the cul-de-sac, right? The ones that are connected to it. So just walk out of the cul-de-sac, take a right. Okay, walk out of the cul-de-sac, take a left. And that's it, just those roads there. Okay, so that's the next step. And then we start branching out further and further and further than there, and you can use your imagination to fill in the steps here, okay? So creating a ladder of compliance, that is what we needed to do with Arrow, okay? We needed to show him that, yes, he must listen here in the low distraction environment and inside the house. Then he also must listen in the backyard. That was difficult. That took work before he was reliable in the backyard, right? Then the front yard, that took work, right? Then the cul-de-sac, again, and then we have to level up, okay? And now that we've done this, now he can go on the same structured walk and he listens, he's successful 80, 90% of the time, right? And so it's a complete flip. All because we took a step back in the training and created this ladder of compliance, right? Because what ends up happening, guys, is you start developing this habit in the dog. The habit is when I give you a command, you listen to the command. It's just the default response. It's just the default. So inside the house, it always happens. Inside the backyard, always happens. Living room, always happens, whatever. Front yard, cul-de-sac, everything. It just always, I always comply. Every time I hear a command, I always comply. I get the reward, whatever, right? And so you build up, you step up every step, one step at a time, up this ladder of compliance until you have built a history of compliance. And then that history of compliance becomes the habit. It becomes the default, and that will serve you once you up distractions even further, right? So again, I don't know what the behavioral psychology term is for this. If anyone of you know, please let me know in the comments, but this is what I'm choosing to call it for now because it is like a ladder. So create a ladder of compliance with your dog. What we did, the mistake we made, was we skipped steps. I thought the neighborhood walk was a low distraction walk, but it wasn't. In reality, I skipped like 5 steps that I shouldn't have, and that's why he was failing. Once I went back, fixed each of those steps, and then go on the walk again, boom, now we have success on the walk. So sometimes that's what you need to do with your dog. It's just to create that ladder of compliance in incrementally increasing distraction levels, okay? All right, so that's solution 1. All right, so moving on now to the second mistake that people make with this is they don't allow the dog to learn from mistakes. And this is key, guys. This is so key. Whenever you're teaching anything to the dog, any behavior, whatever it is, it's so important that the dog learns from their mistakes. Because dogs, just like with humans, just like with kids, you learn so much through mistakes. Mistakes are a critical part of learning. It's so important. And a lot of people, they prevent their dogs from making mistakes in the training. They prevent it. And this is going to sound very contradictory to some common advice that you hear a lot in the dog training world, which is always set your dog up for success, right? Always set your dog up for success. And what you'll find in dog training is there are a lot of contradictions, right? Because that is true. You should always set your dog up for success. In fact, the previous thing that I was just talking about is setting your dog up for success, right? And so what do I mean by this? Allowing them to make mistakes, right? Doesn't that sound like you're setting them up for failure? Yes, you are. You are. And that's the thing with dog training, is those contradictions exist. And so you're gonna have to learn as you're growing as a handler how to juggle those contradictions. That's part of the art of dog training. So what do I mean by this? How do we do it? How do we allow the dog to learn from their mistakes? So the mistake is basically like people prevent their dogs from making mistakes. They try to avoid it if they can, maybe subconsciously. For example, let's say you're working on a down stay and they're kind of afraid their dog could pop up at any moment. And so they act in ways in accordance to that. And they try to prevent the dog from from making that mistake, from breaking up, popping up. They kind of preemptively come back, reward the dog very quickly, then release the dog because they're afraid of the dog making that mistake. Okay, that's what I mean by that. Now, the solution to this is to allow mistakes, and I'm going to call this add the 3Ds. All right, the 3Ds, baby. Something else you guys maybe have heard of before, but we use this in the training for sure. So, allow mistakes, add the 3Ds. What do I mean by that? Well, when we are teaching a behavior, once the dog knows the behavior, like they know it, they know sit, they know down, we taught the behavior, we taught it with positive reinforcement, we taught it with negative reinforcement, they know sit, they know down, they know come, they know heel, they know place, whatever it is. Now it's time to add the 3Ds, okay? The 3Ds are as followed. D, D, D. We got distance, we got duration, and we got distractions. All right? So for example, when we are teaching something like a down, for instance, in the beginning, we just teach the down. We just teach the dog how to hit the position. Then we start adding the 3Ds. We make it gradually more difficult for the dog. Now we tell them to down, and we ask for a little bit of duration. The dog must now hold it for a bit, right? And in the beginning, you want to set your dog up for success. Right? So in the beginning, you might hold it for only 5 seconds. Tell the dog to down, good, good down. Chip, and then reward and then release the dog, right? So in the beginning, you make it quite easy. Distance, you tell the dog to down, good, good down. You take 1 step back, then 1 step forward, chip, reward, right? So you make it very easy. 1 step, then 2 steps, then 3 steps, then 4 steps, and so on, right? Now, to give you an example of allowing your dog to make mistakes, at some point when you are adding these 3Ds, your dog is going to make a mistake. And that's a part of the training. It's a critical piece of the training. At some point, you're adding distance, duration, distractions. At some point, you tell your dog to down, you step back, maybe you step 4 feet back, your dog breaks. In that moment, you've got to mark the behavior, come back, make pressure down, good down. And now you repeat. So your dog just made that mistake and they learned from that mistake. Okay? When he tells me to down, if I get up, I get corrected, I'm met with pressure. I have to go back in the down. Very good. So now we have to reset. Down, good, good down. Now instead of stepping 4 feet back, I'm just gonna step 2 feet back. Then come back, good. Chip, reward the dog. Now I'm gonna step 3 feet back, good. Come back, chip, reward the dog. Right? I'm not gonna prevent the dog from breaking. I'm not gonna prevent them from making a mistake. I'm not gonna be scared of them making a mistake. If they make a mistake, they make a mistake and they're going to learn from the mistake. It's super important, guys. And then once we take a step back, okay, 2 feet, 3 feet, now we go back to 4. Good. Come back, chip, reward the dog. Good down, right? So you see, mistakes are a critical piece of the training when you're doing these behaviors. So we make the distance, make the duration, distractions. This is another good one. So for example, with Arrow, this dude, Had like zero impulse control outside, like zero. Like he just sees something, doesn't. See something, doesn't. Everything. Anything that he wanted to do, like he just did it immediately. That was him when he first came to us. Zero impulse control outside. So we had to really work on that, like really hard. We had to teach this dog to control his impulses, control his own internal drives and desires, just contain himself. Hold it. Don't act on everything you want to do the moment you see something or want to do it, right? You've got to control yourself. So we used a lot of this in the training. For example, you tell him to down, we step away. That's impulse control. Dog has to control themselves to stay in the position. Then I started adding some distractions. In the beginning, I make the distractions pretty easy. So for example, I have him in a down, I step away from him, and I quickly move. Just quickly. Just I kind of do like a little flinch, right? And then he breaks up, he breaks the down, he pops right up. Come back, pressure down, good down. And then I'm standing in front of him, flinch. And then he stays down, good. Come back, ward him in position. And then I kind of do a little bunny hop to the side. He stays in the down, good down. Controlling those impulses, right? In the beginning, like this was extremely difficult for him. Like those like sudden movements, even though it's just me moving around, it's not even anything else. Like that's very distracting for him. Then I started making it a little harder. I would kind of walk to the side, then I would run right in front of him, right? Then I'd walk kind of behind him and I'd run right past him. So you see, you make it harder and harder and harder. And if the dog fails, if they make a mistake, you just show them the consequence of that behavior, and then that's it. And they learn from those mistakes. So we can utilize adding these artificial distractions, that's what we call them, adding these artificial distractions in the training, and this will help prepare your dog for when they encounter real distractions in the real world, right? That's why in week 2 of the training, like in week 1 of the training of our training program, in week 1, we just train the behaviors, we just teach the behaviors. And in week 2, all we do is just add these artificial distractions. Everything you can think of, anything you can think of, anything that you could possibly think of to get your dog to break the position, we do that. So that way, when you go out in the real world and they're encountered with real distractions, they've already exercised that impulse control muscle. Arrow needed that impulse control muscle. He was lacking severely, right? So we had to build that impulse control muscle in him. We had to combine that with creating that ladder of compliance that I was talking about earlier, and then we start making some progress around distractions. All right, guys, so we're gonna work on a little bit of impulse control with Arrow. Now that he's a little tired from the session, we're gonna just take advantage of this on his place command. And what I wanna do is just work on some 3Ds. Some distance, duration, distractions, right? So we just got some artificial distractions here. Good boy, good place. And we're just gonna throw him around. He's on his leash. If he comes off, I'm just gonna mark with at and then use pressure to get him back on. But see, I'll start out pretty easy. Just moving the ball a little bit in his vicinity. Good job, good place, buddy. And then I'll gradually make it harder and harder. But this is really important, these artificial distractions, because this right here, this impulse control muscle that he's exercising is going to transfer to everything. When he's outside, in public, around real world distractions, and I'm having him do obedience around dogs and squirrels and all that stuff, he will have already exercised this muscle. Good boy, good place. Good. Good job, Arrow. Good. Good place. Controlling himself. Good place. Very good. This was really hard for Arrow when we first started. He literally couldn't do it. He'd break every time. But you see he's getting better and better.
Good job. Because if he can't do this, right? If he can't stay on his place board while we kick this ball in front, how is he gonna stay in obedience when we pass dogs that are running around and playing, or he sees a squirrel run up a tree, right? How's he gonna hold obedience in that situation if he can't do this? He won't be able to. He's gonna make some catastrophic mistakes, and then we'll have to make a whole lot of pressure to keep him in obedience. Good. But if you can just build this muscle now, it's so much easier. Doesn't mean he won't make mistakes when we start working in the real world, but it does mean he will generalize it a whole lot faster. Good boy, good place. Good. Good place. Good job, buddy. Controlling yourself. Very good. Good job, buddy. Good place. Now he's standing, and a situation much more prone to a mistake. Good. Good place. Good. Nice place, buddy. Standing is a whole lot less stable than a down, but that's okay. Place. I think he said, you heard me say okay, but I didn't mean that. Good. What I meant to say was, if he wants to put himself in a stand, that's okay, as long as he's on his place. Place. Good. There, took one step off. We'll do it again. Now, I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't reasonably sure he wasn't gonna come off and reasonably sure that I could make negative reinforcement with just the verbal to keep him on. So keep in mind, this isn't day one of doing this, right? Good. Good job. Like, obviously, if you know your dog is gonna break, then hold the leash. Right? Have someone else help you out. Tie them behind something. Good. Good place, buddy. Good place. I know for Arrow, that's his weakness, is like the sudden, small, little quick prey drive movements in front of him, close to him, close proximity. That gets him going. He can barely control that in himself. And so we just work on that. All right, we'll do one more. We'll do one more and then he's good. Good boy. Good place. Nice job, man. Nice job. Now, the really important thing is once I release him, we are not gonna go and engage with those things. That would be like if you were having your dog ignore squirrels and stuff, and then all of a sudden you release them to go to the squirrels. Okay. Okay. Good job, buddy.
So that's it for this video. I hope it helps. Let me know in the comments if you guys like this style of video, and I can continue making more of them if you want. But yeah, let me know what you guys think.